Okay, continuing now with Module 2.3, we were discussing barriers to entry. The first category was government restrictions. We'll proceed now to the second category, which is resource ownership. The basic idea here is that if you have ownership of a particular specific resource that's valued by the market, and that resource is difficult or impossible to reproduce, then you can earn sustained rents. Uh, a good example of this would be the skills of professional athletes. LeBron James has a particular set of skills that allow him to earn a great deal of money. And the idea of trying to enter that market and compete with LeBron James, while I guess possible in principle, in practice is pretty hard to do. Second would be Perrier water. There's a particular spring in France that pumps out this sparkling water, and there's kind of a brand value associated with it, and so lots of people try to compete with Perrier, but nobody can quite do so exactly. The third possibility of resource ownership is De Beers, which decades ago created a cartel that included all of the major diamond mines in the world. So they were able to basically control the supply. Diamonds were expensive, and you might think that, well, if I could just go out and find a diamond mine, then I could compete with De Beers and lower the price. But again, that's easier said than done. And in practice, whenever there was a new discovery of diamonds, then De Beers would invite the owners to join the cartel. If the owners didn't, then they would begin to experience labor troubles and accidents in their mines and things like that. Wink, wink, until they finally decided to go along. The next category of ownership is patents or copyrights. Good example of this is Coca-Cola. It's really a trademark or brand value in general. Lots of people try to compete with Coca-Cola, but you just can't quite do it because you're not Coke. When I walk into my HEB to buy groceries, there are two soda machines, one that sells HEB Cola, one that sells Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola is literally twice as expensive as the HEB Cola, which tastes almost the same. Yet people are willing to pay double the price to buy the Coca-Cola product. And there's basically no, you can try to compete with that, but you can't duplicate it exactly. So Coke's able to then earn sustained rents just by virtue of the brand value of their name. Same way with Apple. Apple products are very expensive. And lots of competition, but again, some people just, including me, which I know is not wise, will want to buy the Apple. Pharmaceuticals, if you can come up with a new drug to treat a particular disease, get a patent on it, then for 19 and a half years or whatever, you can sell that and make monopoly profits on it. So you're protected from competition by the patent. The last category of barriers to entry is decreasing average cost. This is what economists call natural monopoly. This is one I'd encourage you kind of not to make too big a deal out of, but I just put it here for completeness. Basic idea is you have a situation with high fixed cost and low marginal cost. When this happens, competition tends to drive price to marginal cost, as we've discussed before. If you have a high fixed cost and a low marginal cost, then what that means is price tends to be below average cost and leads to a negative economic profit. The classic example here is electric power transmission. That is the wires. That is once one company has the transmission wires up. If you had two companies doing it, or two or more companies that took out the big investment, the high initial fixed costs, and were competing, Well, the marginal cost of adding a new user to the grid is very low. So if competition drove price to the marginal cost, then the price they were getting wouldn't cover their average cost, wouldn't cover their total cost of operation, and so they'd all be losing money. And then presumably some would leave, and there'd just be one left. That's why they call it natural monopoly. A more current example here of a kind of decreasing average cost type industry is in markets for information goods. The movie Avatar, the marginal cost of the first unit is very high, millions and millions of dollars. After that, the marginal cost is basically zero. As I've said before, this creates some interesting phenomena with respect to pricing that we'll be discussing later in actually in the next module, module 3. So now, what are the implications of monopoly? Well, relative to perfect competition, monopoly market has a higher price and a lower quantity traded. Monopoly is inefficient in the everyday language sense. If you're a monopolist, you're not under a lot of pressure to control costs. You're not under a lot of pressure to provide good customer service, and you're really not under a lot of pressure to innovate once you have the monopoly. Sometimes the desire to get a monopoly is the incentive to innovate, but once you have it, that incentive goes away. Way back in the early days of Saturday Night Live, a comedian named Lily Tomlin did a series of skits where she was a telephone operator, and she would always end her conversations with frustrated customers by saying, "We're A&T, we don't care because we don't have to." So monopoly is also inefficient in what economists call a Pareto sense, in the sense that the losses to consumers are more than the gains to the producers. So in principle, everyone can be made better off. That's what you learn about in kind of a basic advanced microeconomics class, but not all that really relevant to your managerial career. Now, monopoly does not necessarily involve earning positive economic profit or rents. As you could have a monopoly in something that nobody wants to buy, in which case you have pricing power, but if nobody wants to buy it, you're obviously not going to make any money. But if you are earning rents, the rents will not attract direct competitors, and the reason is that you can't. By definition, there's some type of barrier to entry that makes competition difficult. You will, however, attract indirect competition. So somebody may try to innovate around you. Somebody may try to come up with an alternative product. Things like that. So even if you have a strong barrier to entry, if you're making tons of money, then it's still the case that the rents may not last forever. Now, from the public policy perspective, there are several options with respect to monopoly. Monopoly in and of itself is a bad thing relative to perfect competition. So one of the things governments can do is just do nothing, that is, allow private monopolies to exist. Another is to have government ownership of monopolies. So in principle, then they could operate the monopoly at a loss, and set price equal to marginal cost, thereby mimic the perfectly competitive outcome. Of course, they have to get the funding to do that with taxes or whatever. There's I believe the state of Pennsylvania has a legal monopoly on all alcohol sales, or maybe liquor sales. The federal government in Norway, I believe, has a monopoly on all alcohol, the Vinmonopolet, they call it. Of course, when like any other monopolist, there's a temptation for inefficiency and bad customer service, and governments, rather than kind of operating for the benefit of consumers, could just use it as a cash cow. Another possibility is to allow the private monopolist to exist, but to regulate the monopoly, both in terms of how it does business generally, but in particular in the terms of the price it can charge. In principle, the idea here is to allow the monopolist to earn a fair rate of return. Uh, this used to be the case with electric bills generally. Now it's the case for the companies that actually do lay the wire. In Waco, it's a company called Encore. Uh, the agency that does this in the state of Texas is the Public Utility Commission, and you can click on this website here and poke around on that. Uh, Whenever a monopolist wants to raise price, they have to file a request with the PUC to do this, and it becomes a very intensely political kind of deal. Uh, the last possibility is that when a company has a monopoly on a particular good, they can offer different versions of it. This is particularly true for information goods. So the new movie might rent for more than the old movie, for example. We'll talk a lot more about that in Module 2.4. All right, lastly, I would like to discuss this paper by Koff in the Strategic Management Journal having to do with the development of the iTunes and the iPod. The first main point that I want you to take from that article is that stakeholders of all kinds go after rents. Rents being economic profits over and above what you can make with the best alternative use of your resources. Abnormally high profits, you might say. So these don't just automatically go to the owners of the firm. I mean, once they're there, once it becomes clear they're going to be there, employees, contractors, labor unions, executives, everybody will go after them. That's the kind of the fun part of the article, reading about that. The second point is this rent seeking, as we call it, often occurs before the rents are actually created. So people work to be in a position to collect the rents when they become available. And game theory, which we'll discuss in Module 4, will have a lot to say about that. Another example of rent creation is NCAA football and men's basketball, which generates enormous amounts of money. My impression is, I haven't seen any formal studies, that most of those rents go two places. First, they go to fund other sports as dictated in particular by Title IX, which mandates equal participation in intercollegiate athletics by women and men and proportionate to enrollment in the student body. And second is to coaches' salaries. Baylor's coach, Art Briles, who does a magnificent job, I believe makes well over $4 million a year. That's, I think, where those rents go. Now, I used a term in the previous slide called rent seeking. This is a general term economists use to discuss the pursuit of government restrictions that create barriers to entry and allow a firm to produce monopoly rents. So this is where lobbying comes in. There are lots of firms that will lobby a legislature for you to either protect you from competition or to prevent the legislature from helping a competitor that you're trying to compete with. If you were getting a master's in public policy rather than an MBA, let's say at the Bush School at A&M or the LBJ School at UT, what they tell you is they are teaching you how to work on a congressional committee staff. In fact, many of the graduates of those programs go to work for corporations in the lobbying function. They don't call it lobbying, they call it government relations. But basically, if you're a big company, you can't ignore government. Even if you're not inclined to ask the government to help you or to shield you from competition, you nevertheless have to worry about your competitors doing that. Another form of rent seeking is litigation, where we'll have a term called trolls, where frivolous lawsuits attempt to extract rents from companies earning them, like Apple. Apple gets sued a lot for patent infringements of one type or another. Some of those may be legitimate. I suspect most of them aren't, but they figure that Apple has deep pockets and they might just pay us, $500,000 to go away. Uh, an economist called Gordon Tullock studied this phenomenon in detail, and he had this interesting quote: "The activity of creating monopolies is a competitive industry. This is rational to allocate resources toward monopoly creation as long as the marginal benefit exceeds the marginal cost." So the reality of modern business, particularly big business, is that you might try to innovate and build a better mousetrap. That might make money for your shareholders. An alternative use of those resources might be to try to lobby the government for some type of benefit. So an example of a barrier to entry and monopoly and the rents that could create was a struggle between Hewlett Packard and Dell over a company called 3PAR back in 2010. I'm going to click on that link now, and I'll just move that screen over here where you can see it. Basically, 3PAR has never turned an annual profit in 3 years as a public company. Would need to add over $40 million in free cash flow to make the deal profitable. So why are HP and Dell so adamant they'll win this obscure bid for an unprofitable company? And the answer can be found in a high-growth technology business called cloud computing, right? We know what that is now. So basically, 3PAR had some technology that was patented, and HP and Dell both wanted to piggyback on that. And so hence the rather intense bidding war. Now, in discussion assignment 2.3, I basically ask you to come up with an example of a barrier to entry and write a paragraph or so about that. So again, try to choose something interesting. Try to choose something that your classmates will benefit from reading.